The wind screamed across the alien mountain range, sharp like a knife. Snow blew into the sky, covering the rocks, the paths, and the weak light of day. In a narrow cave on the side of the mountain, an alien mother named Leary held her child tightly. Her arms wrapped around the small, trembling body of Novi, her only son. They were cold. Too cold. Leary's skin, once a soft silver blue, had turned pale. Her kind were not made for this place. Their planet had warm forests, not frozen cliffs. She looked down at Novi, his eyes half closed, lips dry. He hadn't spoken in hours. "Stay with me, my little light," she whispered, her voice shaking. The cave was small and dark, with no fire, no food, and no sign of rescue. They had come here days ago, running from war. Soldiers had burned their village. Leary had carried her child through ice and stone, away from death, but now death waited here too, quiet and cold. Outside, the snowstorm roared louder. Suddenly, crunch. Footsteps. Liri froze. Her eyes widened, ears sharp. That wasn't the sound of snow falling. It was the sound of boots. Heavy. Rhythmic. Coming closer. She covered Novi's mouth and pushed him deeper into her arms. A shadow moved outside the cave, tall, broad, and not from her world. It was a human. His name was Jack, though Leary didn't know it yet. He wore a thick, armored jacket, a cracked helmet, and a heavy backpack. His face was covered with frost, beard full of snow. He looked like a ghost from a dead world. Jack had crashed nearby 2 days ago. His team was gone, maybe dead. He had followed heat signals, hoping for survivors, but what he found was this cave, and the weak sound of life. Inside. When he saw them, he paused. The alien mother stood like a wounded animal, ready to fight or run. Her skin shimmered in the low light. The child in her arms looked half conscious. Jack raised his hands, slow, calm, open. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. Of course they didn't understand, but maybe his tone, maybe that mattered. Leary didn't move. She watched carefully. He could be a soldier, a hunter, a killer. Then Jack slowly took off his pack and opened it. He pulled out something small, a silver food bar, and gently placed it on the floor, then stepped back. Leary didn't move. Jack reached again, this time for a heat pack. He cracked it with a snap, and warm steam started rising. He placed it beside the food and sat down a few steps away. Still. Waiting. I looked at Novi, then at the warm pack. Her child needed help. She didn't trust the human, but death was already here, and maybe this stranger was not worse than it. She reached out, slowly, and took the heat pack. It burned a little, but it brought life back into her hands. She pressed it against Novi's chest. The boy whimpered, but opened his eyes. "Good," she whispered. "Stay with me." Jack watched as the alien child slowly woke. The mother's eyes softened. Just a little. Not trust, but less fear. Then the cave shook. Boom. A sound echoed deep from the mountain. Snow had shifted above. Before Leary could react, the cave's entrance exploded with a roar. A large rock smashed down, half blocking the opening. Snow poured. The fire pack went out. Novi screamed. Leary covered him, but Jack moved fast, too fast for a cold, tired man. He threw himself between the mother and the falling snow. His back took the hit. Ice hit his shoulder. Blood ran down his arm, but he stayed standing. He pushed against the rock, stopping it from falling completely. His strength kept the way open. Leary stared in shock. Why would he help? Why would a human protect them? Later, the storm calmed. The entrance was smaller now, but not closed. Jack sat by the wall, breathing hard, holding his bleeding arm. Leary looked at him. For the first time, she didn't feel afraid. She tore a piece of her outer robe and handed it to him. Jack looked surprised, but accepted it. In silence. They sat near each other. Novi crawled to Jack and touched his glove, curious. Jack smiled. weakly and gently offered him another food bar. Novi looked at his mother. She nodded. And the child ate. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the cold cave, a strange fire had started to grow, not from heat packs or flame, but from something older. The fire pack was gone. The cave was darker now. Only the dim glow from the snow outside gave a little light. But in that silence, something had changed. The human man sat with his back against the cold wall, arm bleeding, breathing slow. The alien. Mother Leary watched him closely. Her son Novi now rested quietly beside her, alive, warm, and fed. The strange human had saved them. But who was he? He hadn't spoken again. He just sat, quiet and still, like a statue in the dark. Leary whispered to Novi, "Stay here." Then she stood, weak but strong enough to walk to the man. She knelt beside him. He didn't flinch. Carefully, she reached for his arm. The cloth she had given him was now red. He had tried to stop the bleeding, but not well. Leary pressed her hand on the wound, and her skin glowed softly. The man raised his eyes. They were tired, but not afraid. Leary used her nails to tear her sleeve further. She wrapped the cloth tighter and gave a small nod. The man gave a small smile. Not wide, not fake, real. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. Two enemies. Two survivors. Two parents. Jack had always thought aliens were strange and dangerous. He had trained for war, survival, rescue. But now he sat beside one who had saved him. A mother. Just like any human mother, trying to protect her child. She didn't need words to show kindness. Neither did he. Jack reached into his pack and took out a small heating disc. He tapped it twice and placed it on the ground. A warm light filled the cave like a quiet sunrise. The boy, Novi, crawled forward and sat by the light, smiling. Leary's eyes softened. She looked at the disc, then at the man, then back to her child. Something deep inside her chest began to shift. Maybe this human was not a soldier. Maybe he was a gift. Jack pulled out a small tool, like a pen, and began drawing on the cave floor. He drew a picture of a spaceship with smoke behind it. Then a small stick figure man falling into snow. Leary leaned forward, curious. He pointed to the man. Then to himself, crash. Alone. Then he drew two small figures, a tall one with horns, her, and a small one, Novi, curled up. Then a cave. He pointed at her. Then to the cave drawing. Found you. Leary understood. She took the pen gently from his hand and began to draw next to it flames. Villages, smoke, soldiers. Then a cave again. She pointed at her drawing. Jack looked down, eyes heavy. They had both lost everything. Now, only this cave kept them alive. Suddenly, a sound echoed from deep inside the cave. Drip, 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 Novi looked up, ears twitching. Jack stood, slowly, flashlight ready. He pointed inside toward the tunnel. Leary shook her head. Danger. But Jack looked toward the rocks at the entrance. Snow was building again. If another collapse happened, they'd be sealed in forever. He pointed toward the deep tunnel. His expression said it clearly. If we want to survive, we need a way out. They waited for morning. Leary used her robe to build a small blanket for Novi. Jack shared his last food bar, breaking it into 3. The boy laughed once, a soft, real laugh that echoed in the cave. Jack smiled too. Later, Leary took a small glowing crystal from her necklace. She placed it in Jack's palm. He looked at it, confused. She pointed to her heart. Then to him. Jack understood. It wasn't just a gift, it was trust. That night, while Novi slept, Jack stayed awake, listening to the wind outside. Leary sat beside him. No words. Just breathing. 2 enemies. Now. Maybe not. In the quiet dark, she whispered something in her own tongue. He didn't understand, but he replied with a soft voice, "You're welcome." And for the first time since his crash, He felt human again. Outside, the snow piled high. Inside, the cave held warmth, not from fire but from people. The next morning, the world outside the cave was silent. No wind, no falling snow dot, but inside the cave, something had changed. Not the temperature, not the stone walls or the broken entrance, but something deeper. Trust. Jack, the human, had slept. Sitting up, his gun was in his lap, but his hands were loose. He wasn't guarding against them anymore. He was guarding for them. I opened her eyes and saw her son Novi, sleeping with his head against Jack's leg. She didn't move, she just watched. For the first time in days, her heart didn't feel heavy. Jack stirred awake. His neck hurt, his back sore, but when he saw the boy still alive, still warm, he smiled. He took out a thin metal disc from his jacket, a survival tool from his crash kit. He unfolded it like a flower, clicked 2 buttons, and a tiny blue flame appeared in the center. I gasped. Fire. Clean. Controlled. Jack set a small pot over it and melted some snow into water. He added a powder, vitamins, protein, warmth. He handed the warm cup to Leary. She sniffed it. Strange smell. But then Novi reached out, took a sip, and smiled. Leary followed. Her hands stopped shaking. Her skin began to glow a little brighter. It was working. When they finished, Jack pointed to the wall and tapped his pen again. This time, he drew a mountain with a cave and 2 exits. One was blocked. The other went deeper inside. Leary frowned. No, she whispered in her language. She drew a symbol beside the dark tunnel, a claw, a skull, a warning, but Jack didn't understand her words. She pointed to her drawing and made a growling sound. Jack paused. Then slowly nodded. He understood enough. Danger lies ahead, but there may be no other way out. Later, Novi found a small dry root near the wall. He handed it to Jack. Jack smiled. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small flint box. He gathered the root, some threads from his clothes, and tiny pebbles. Then strike. Spark. Flame. A real fire. Leary gasped again. Her kind had long lost the art of fire. Their people used crystals, light tech, but not this. Not raw heat and light from sticks and sparks. To her, it was like watching a god create warmth from nothing. She whispered something in her tongue. Kanira. Jack tilted his head. What? She pointed to him. Kanira. Jack repeated. Kanira? She nodded. It meant firebringer. The cave lit up softly. Shadows danced on the walls. For the first time, they could see more than just stone. That's when Leary noticed the markings. Not drawn by Jack, not by her. Old carvings. Faded. Deep into the stone. She stood and touched the wall. Symbols, shapes, circles with eyes, spirals with teeth, ancient alien writing. She whispered, "This place is not just a cave." Jack stood beside her, watching. She drew her fingers along the shapes, remembering stories her elders told her. Long ago, caves like this were used by the ancients, not for living, but for testing, trial, passage. One mark showed a figure entering a cave. Another showed that figure changing, becoming something else. Novi looked up and said, "Mama, are we going to change too?" Leary didn't answer. That night, Jack shared his last emergency signal flare with Leary. He pointed to the sky, then to his broken radio. He wanted her to understand, "If I don't find my team soon, we all die here." Leary nodded. Then she surprised him. She took a small silver shard from her pouch, a broken piece of an ancient tool. She pressed it to the cave floor. A light shimmered. A tiny map appeared, a hidden path, buried under the mountain. Far older than any map Jack had seen. She said one word, "Way." Jack's eyes widened. They weren't just waiting to die anymore. They had a path. The fire crackled. Novi laughed as sparks danced upward. Jack leaned back and smiled, tired but hopeful. Lir, I looked at the human, the firebringer. He was not her kind. He was not part of her world, but in that cave, with her child safe beside him, and the fire warming all three, he had become part of her life. Tomorrow they would decide to go deeper into the mountain, or stay and hope for rescue. But tonight, they had fire, they had food, they had hope. The tunnel was narrow. Jack moved slowly, flare in hand. The walls around him pulsed with strange light blue veins running through the stone. Like the cave was alive. He wasn't alone. Voices whispered in his ears, but no one was there. One voice sounded like his captain, another like his mother, another like himself. You failed them. You left them behind. You will fail again. Jack shut his eyes. Not this time. Suddenly, the tunnel opened into a massive underground chamber. He gasped. It was a cathedral of stone and crystal. Glowing pillars reached to the ceiling. In the center stood a large machine, shaped like a ring, humming softly. And behind it sat a figure. Not floating like the last guardian. Not glowing. It was old. Broken. Forgotten. The being looked like a mix of metal and flesh, and alien AI fused into a chair. Wires growing from its body into the walls. Its eyes were closed. Dust covered its skin. Then, it opened its eyes slowly. Bright white light poured out. It looked at Jack and smiled. You came, it said. Jack raised his flare. Who are you? The voice echoed gently, not loud or proud, just tired. I am the last memory. I was once the guardian of this place, but my creators, they never returned. Jack stepped closer. This cave, this trial, it's testing me, right? The guardian nodded. Double quotes, yes, but not for strength. For purpose. Jack frowned. Purpose? The ice voice grew softer. Power means nothing without reason. You carry warmth in a cold world. You bleed for others. That is your strength. Jack looked down. I'm just a soldier. I got lucky. I found them before the storm killed them. The guardian tilted its head. Luck did not make you give your food. Luck did not make you take the hit. Luck did not make the child call you Father. Jack's breath caught. He didn't have an answer. The guardian's chair shifted. A light emerged behind it, a door of glowing crystal. This leads to the surface. A safe path for the alien mother and child. Jack stepped forward. You'll let them go? Yes, you earned it. Jack smiled with relief. Then the guardian added, but not for free. Jack froze. What do you mean? The guardian looked at him with soft, bright eyes. To open the path, someone must remain. The cave requires presence. It needs a guide. Jack's heart sank. You want me to stay here? The guardian nodded. I am dying. I have served for 1,000 years. The flame is fading. Jack looked back at the tunnel behind him. He imagined Leary's face, Novi's laughter, the boy calling him Kanira, the trust in their eyes, and he realized something. He had found more than just survivors. He had found family. Jack looked at the machine. I'm not like you. I'm not a guardian. You became one the moment you placed others before yourself. The guardian replied. The machine began to glow brighter. Ready, you must choose. The I said. Jack stared at the light. Then smiled. I already have. He stepped forward and placed his hand on the control panel. Suddenly, the walls around him lit up with color. The entire mountain hummed. A loud cracking sound echoed through the stone. Back in the main cave, Leary gasped as the wall behind her began to open. Stone shifted. Light poured in. A staircase of glowing stone revealed itself. Novi cried out with joy. Kanira opened the door. Leary stood, clutching her son. She turned to the entrance, waiting for Jack to walk through. But he didn't. Only silence. Far below, the forgotten guardian looked at Jack. You will forget your name, your voice, your world. Jack nodded. As long as they live. The Guardian gave a peaceful smile. Then the mountain welcomes its new flame. And as the old machine shut down for the final time, a new one awakened. Jack's eyes glowed softly. His heartbeat sensed with the crystal walls. He became one with the cave. The new voice, the new warmth, the new guide. Leary stood at the top of the stairs, the cold wind brushing against her skin. She looked back one last time and whispered, "Thank you, Firebringer." Then she walked into the light. The mountain stayed quiet, but if you listened closely, you could hear a whisper through the stone. The fire had gone out. Only ashes remained. Jack woke first. His hand reached for his sidearm. The cave was quiet, too quiet. Even the wind outside had stopped. It was like the mountain itself was holding its breath. Novi was still asleep, curled beside his mother. Leary slept lightly, her ears twitching. She had dreamed of something watching them. Jack stood, careful not to make noise. He looked toward the dark tunnel, the one Leary warned about. But now something was different. There was a sound. Drip, drip. A slow, repeating drop of water echoing from deep within. Then, whispering, I opened her eyes. She sat up quickly, heart racing. She heard it too, not human. Not her language. Something ancient. It wasn't coming from inside her head. It was coming from the stone walls themselves. She grabbed Novi and held him close. Jack turned and met her eyes. "You heard that too?" She didn't need to understand his words. Her nod said enough. The cave was not empty. Jack lit a small torch and walked to the wall. The strange symbols from the day before looked brighter. They were glowing faintly, like they had been touched by light for the first time in centuries. He raised his hand to one, an eye inside a spiral dot. It was warm. Suddenly, the flame in his torch flickered blue. Leary shouted, "Don't touch it." Too late. The stone shifted under his hand. Click. A low rumble came from the tunnel. Then from the darkness, footsteps, wet, uneven, getting closer. Novi began to cry. Leary stood, shielding him behind her. She picked up a sharp stone, her only weapon. Jack aimed his sidearm at the tunnel entrance. From the shadows, something moved. Not fast. Not violent. Tall. Thin. Pale. Glowing faint blue. It wasn't a monster. It was a being. Old. With no eyes. Skin stretched over bone. Wearing a necklace of broken tech and crystal shards. It didn't walk like a predator. It floated. Just slightly above the ground. And it spoke in a deep voice. In Leary's language. Leary froze. Her eyes widened. Jack looked between them, confused. "What is it saying?" he asked, though he knew she couldn't answer. Leary stared at the being, then whispered, "It is the Guardian." Jack frowned. "Guardian of what?" She slowly translated. "Guardian of the trial. This cave is not a hiding place. It is a test." The Guardian stepped closer, not threatening, but not friendly either. It spoke again. This time, its voice echoed inside their minds words Jack could understand. "The Firebringer has entered the sacred path. He must face the deep. Only then will the path open." Jack stepped forward. "What do you mean?" "I'm just trying to get them out." The Guardian tilted its head. "You protect the weak. You bring warmth. You bleed for others. This is the old way. You may pass, but only if you face what lies within." Jack looked back at Leary. She held Novi tightly. She whispered, "Don't go." Jack sighed. "We don't have a choice. There's no way out unless I finish this. Whatever this is." He turned to the Guardian. "What lies inside?" The Guardian's answer was quiet. "Yourself." The wall behind it opened, smooth stone splitting into two like a hidden door. A new tunnel, deeper, darker than before, waited. Inside, the Guardian stepped aside. Jack took a deep breath and lit his last emergency flare. "Stay here," he said softly to Leary and Novi. Leary grabbed his arm. Her eyes begged him not to go. Jack smiled gently. "You called me Firebringer. I won't let your light die." Then he stepped into the darkness alone. As he disappeared, the wall slowly closed again. Leary stared at the spot, tears in her eyes. Whispering stopped. Only silence remained. Inside the deep passage, Jack walked alone. He saw flashes, memories of his past. His team, his old life, the mistakes he made, his failures, his guilt. Voices called to him, accusing, mocking, asking, "Why save them? They are not your kind." But Jack didn't stop. He walked forward. And from somewhere far away, he heard Novi's voice in his mind. "Kanira, come back." Jack gritted his teeth. He wasn't walking for himself anymore. He was walking for them. Back in the main cave, Leary whispered softly into her child's ear, "He will come back. He has fire inside." And the wall glowed softly again, warm, like breath. The cave had spoken, but it hadn't spoken its last word yet. The stairs led them up. Step by step, Leary held Novi close as the light grew brighter. Behind them, the cave closed softly, quietly, like a goodbye sealed in stone. When they reached the surface, the wind hit her face again. Cold, wild, but this time, she didn't fear it. This time, they were not lost. The sky was cloudy, mountains stretched far and wide, still covered in snow. But down in the valley, smoke. Not from nature, from war. Leary saw the signs: burning trees, broken roads, ruined buildings. She smelled it in the air: fire, blood, metal. The war hadn't stopped. The world she left behind had fallen deeper into chaos. She reached the edge of the hill and saw it, her old village, now taken over by warlords, armed aliens in black armor, using heavy tech, controlling survivors like prisoners. They were shouting at elders, burning what was left of the temple. Children were being separated from their parents. Novi gasped, "Mama, that's where we lived." Leary pulled him close. Not anymore, love, not as before. But inside her something stirred. She had survived the storm. She had walked through a sacred trial. She had watched a human give up everything for them. She wasn't just a mother anymore. She was a witness of fire. At night, they hid near a stream. Leary searched for food, using old tricks her people had forgotten. She made a small camp, keeping Novi warm with clothes stitched from cave fiber. Other refugees found them silent, cold, afraid. One asked, "Are you alone?" Leary answered, "Not anymore." Within days, whispers spread. A mother and child returned from the dead. She walks with fire in her eyes. The cave chose her. People listened. More came. Old soldiers, scared farmers, broken families. They didn't want war, but they wanted to live. They looked to Leary for guidance, and for the first time, she stepped forward. She drew maps in the dirt-safe paths, water routes, enemy patrol patterns. She taught children how to stay hidden. She taught mothers how to make smoke bombs from river minerals. She showed young men how to use broken tech as traps. They called her Cave Flame, a name of respect. But one night, when she was alone, she whispered to the sky, "I am only here because he stayed behind." Then the warlords made a mistake. They took children again, including Novi. Leary ran, heart burning. But she didn't panic. She remembered what Jack taught her. Breathe, focus, act smart, not fast. She followed footprints, used cave powder to mark trails, listened. She didn't fight with weapons. She fought with knowledge. She found the war camp deep in the trees. A large generator pulsed near it, shielding the compound. Leary took a stone and etched an ancient rune on a nearby tree. A signal only those who had survived the trial would understand. She waited. And something responded. A low hum. The trees shimmered. The air shifted. The mountain was listening. From the ground beneath the war camp, a deep sound erupted. A tremor. Shield glitche. Lights flickered. Then, Fire. Blue flame burst from the earth, not burning the trees, but burning through machines. Soldiers screamed. Leary ran in and grabbed Novi. He clung to her, crying, "You came." She kissed his forehead. Always. They escaped through the trees, while the camp behind them burned in blue silence. That night, as stars returned to the sky, the villagers gathered around her. Someone asked, "What was that power?" Leary didn't answer for a moment. Then, looking toward the mountain, she said, "The one who stayed. He still watches." Far below, deep inside the stone, Jack's eyes opened. Not human anymore. Not machine. Something in between. He saw the world through light, through heat, through memory. He felt Leary's heartbeat. He smiled. "Good," he whispered into the mountain. "They're fighting back." The stars were clear tonight. The mountain stood tall and silent in the distance, its peak glowing faintly, as if a heartbeat pulsed inside it. Leary stood at the edge of the village, watching it. Behind her, the camp was alive. Not with fear, but with laughter, hope, and new stories. The warlords had been pushed back. The people were learning to fight, not with weapons, but with unity, survival, and the fire Jack had left behind. Novi ran across the clearing, holding a stick like a toy sword. "I'm the firebringer now," he shouted. Children laughed around him. One girl wore a bracelet made from blue cave crystals. Another boy painted marks on his face, the same symbols Jack once drew on the cave wall. They had never seen the man, but they knew his story. They knew what he gave. Leary sat beside the fire that night, looking up at the stars. Her eyes reflected the flames. A young girl from the village asked, "Is it true? The humans stayed behind for you?" Leary nodded slowly. He didn't have to, but he chose to. "Why?" the girl asked. Leary smiled softly. "Because family isn't always who we're born to. Sometimes family is who chooses to stay." That night, Leary opened a small pouch. Inside it, she kept 3 items. A broken piece of Jack's flare, the glowing crystal he once used for heat, and a simple sketch drawn by Novi, a man with fire in his hands, standing between a mother and child. She placed them carefully near the flames, not for worship, for memory, for love. The wind shifted. The fire flared blue for just a moment. Novi saw it and whispered, "He's watching us, isn't he?" Leary didn't answer with words. She just nodded. Far beneath the earth, deep inside the ancient machine, Jack's consciousness stirred. He had no body now, no voice, but he felt. He felt when Novi laughed. He felt when Leary smiled. He felt when someone called him Kanira. Each of their emotions echoed through the crystal network of the mountain. And each time they remembered him. He remembered who he was. Years passed. The war faded. Peace returned to the valley. The cave remained closed, but sometimes new travelers came seeking shelter. They heard the stories of a sacred path, of a glowing cave, of a fire that protects the lost. And sometimes when they entered with pure hearts, the cave would open for them, and a voice soft and deep would speak, "You are not alone." One day, when Novi was older, he climbed the mountain with his friends. He reached the same spot where Jack had first appeared. He placed a hand on the stone. The cave door opened slightly, just enough to let in a breeze. Warm and gentle. Novi smiled. "Thank you," he whispered. Then turned back. Down in the village, Leary watched her son return. He walked taller now, not because he was older, but because he carried something inside him, the fire of a man who gave everything. That night, they celebrated under the stars. Old songs mixed with new stories. Someone carved a symbol on the village. The spiral with a flame inside. It became their banner, their hope, their reminder that once, in the coldest place on the mountain, a human brought fire not to destroy, but to protect. And even after time passed, even when the names were forgotten, The story lived on. Because in every heart that chose kindness over power, Jack lived again.